Early foundations, 1930s to 1949. Charles M. Schulz's path toward Peanuts began with a lifelong interest in cartooning. He studied at the art instruction schools in Minneapolis, first as a student and later as an instructor. In 1947, he created Lil Folks, a weekly strip for the St. Paul Pioneer Press. It showcased children who spoke like adults, delivering witty and often melancholy observations about everyday life. Early versions of characters resembling Charlie Brown and Schroeder appeared here, along with a dog inspired by Schulz's childhood pet, Spike. The strip was drawn more realistically at first, but Schulz quickly simplified the style into small-bodied figures with oversized, round heads. This minimal design emphasized facial expression and timing rather than elaborate backgrounds. Though Lil Folks gained some attention, the paper canceled it in 1950. Rather than discouraging him, this setback fueled Schulz's determination to find a national outlet for his work, pushing him toward syndication and larger ambitions. Birth of Peanuts, 1950 to 1952. United Feature Syndicate accepted Schulz's new strip in 1950, but forced a name change from Lil Folks to Peanuts. Schulz disliked the title, finding it demeaning and irrelevant to the characters, but he agreed in order to secure national distribution. Peanuts debuted on October 7, 1950, appearing in 7 newspapers. The early cast featured Charlie Brown, Shermy, and Patty, with Snoopy introduced 2 days later as a fairly ordinary dog. In 1951, Violet and Schroeder joined, establishing key dynamics. Violet brought social snobbery, while Schroeder's passion for Beethoven created endless comedic contrasts. Schulz's art was spare and economical, 2 or 3 panels, minimal backgrounds, and clean line work. This simplicity placed full weight on expressions and dialogue. The formula was efficient for daily publication and created a distinctive rhythm: setup, reaction, then ironic or deflating punchline. Within 2 years, Schulz had moved from a small local strip to the beginnings of what would become a cultural phenomenon. Expansion of cast and style, 1952 to 1959. The 1950s saw Peanuts grow into its recognizable form. Lucy appeared in 1952, adding confrontation and sarcasm, while her brother Linus debuted soon after with a softer, philosophical voice and his signature security blanket. Pigpen entered in 1954 as a visual gag character, constantly surrounded by dust, and Charlie Brown's younger sister Sally was introduced in 1959, allowing Schulz to explore family dynamics. During these years, Snoopy transformed from a background pet into a star in his own right. Thought Balloons, 1952, gave him a voice, and by 1957 he was standing upright, gesturing, and interacting in human-like ways. Visually, Schulz refined his style. Characters' heads became rounder, bodies slightly taller, and lines thinner, making emotions easier to read at a glance. Backgrounds were reduced to essentials, giving strips a timeless, universal setting. By the end of the decade, Peanuts had its core ensemble, a polished art style, and the unique blend of humor and melancholy that defined its future success. The Golden Age and Cultural Breakthrough, 1960 to 1965. By the early 1960s, Peanuts had matured into the form that readers now consider its Golden Age. Schulz had fully stabilized character proportions and sharpened personalities, while storylines shifted from simple gags toward deeper explorations of disappointment, friendship, and quiet perseverance. Charlie Brown became the eternal underdog, unable to win at baseball, fly a kite, or receive a valentine, embodying Schulz's own anxieties. Lucy thrived as the foil, sarcastic and controlling, while Linus represented thoughtful vulnerability. Snoopy grew increasingly imaginative, retreating into fantasy roles that highlighted Schulz's creativity. The strip's tone was unusual in comics, bittersweet, philosophical, and at times melancholy. These qualities resonated with a wide audience and helped it stand apart from the slapstick-heavy humor of the era. By the mid-1960s, Peanuts appeared in hundreds of newspapers, had a loyal readership in the tens of millions, and was poised to expand into television and merchandising, cementing its place in American culture. Snoopy's personas and the Golden Age. Snoopy's transformation in the 1960s elevated Peanuts to its golden age. Through thought balloons and anthropomorphic behavior, Snoopy became a stage actor within the strip, taking on more than 200 different personas across decades. His most famous role was the World War I flying ace, first seen in 1965, who battled the unseen Red Baron from atop his doghouse, Sopwith Camel. Other alter egos included Joe Cool, the Beagle Scout, and the literary ace who endlessly typed rejected manuscripts. These identities allowed Schulz to explore surreal humor and visual storytelling outside of the children's ordinary world. Meanwhile, Charlie Brown remained the emotional center, embodying Schulz's own anxieties and failures, never winning a baseball game, never kicking Lucy's football, and never earning the affection of the little red-haired girl. The balance between Snoopy's escapist fantasies and Charlie Brown's grounded struggles gave Peanuts both levity and poignancy, ensuring its broad appeal across ages and cultures. Transition to animation, first adaptations. The first major step from print to screen came in the late 1950s, when Peanuts characters were licensed for Ford Motor Company commercials. Animator Bill Melendez, who had worked at Disney and Warner Brothers, was hired to bring Schulz's drawings to life. He developed a minimal animation style that preserved Schulz's line work and used economic movement to match the strip's simplicity. This collaboration laid the groundwork for the 1963 documentary A Boy Named Charlie Brown, produced by Lee Mendelson. Although never released, it featured animated segments that convinced Schulz that Melendez could faithfully adapt his strip. In 1965, Coca-Cola approached Mendelson about sponsoring a Christmas special. Schulz, Mendelson, and Melendez quickly developed A Charlie Brown Christmas, insisting on child voice actors, a slow and reflective tone, and the use of Vince Guaraldi's jazz score. Though network executives doubted its appeal, the special aired in December 1965 and became an instant success, setting the standard for all future Peanuts animations. A Charlie Brown Christmas and its Impact, 1965. When A Charlie Brown Christmas aired on December 9, 1965, it redefined what an animated television special could be. Schulz rejected conventions such as a laugh track, opting instead for sincerity and silence when needed. He insisted on casting real children for voices rather than adults pretending to sound young, which gave the characters authenticity. Most daring of all, he included Linus's direct reading from the Gospel of Luke, grounding the story in themes of faith and meaning rather than commercialism. Vince Guaraldi's gentle jazz score with songs like Linus and Lucy created a timeless musical identity for the franchise. Critics initially worried the pacing was too slow and the tone too contemplative, but audiences responded overwhelmingly. Nearly half of American households tuned in, and the special won both an Emmy and a Peabody Award. It quickly became an annual tradition, proving that Schulz's understated humor and melancholy storytelling could thrive far beyond the newspaper page. Expansion of animated specials, 1966 to 1969. Following the success of A Charlie Brown Christmas, CBS commissioned more Peanuts specials. Charlie Brown's All-Stars, 1966, explored themes of gender equality in sports, while It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, 1966, cemented itself as a Halloween classic, with Snoopy's flying ace sequence standing out as a milestone in animated storytelling. These specials established the formula: simple animation faithful to Schulz's art, Guaraldi's music, and narratives that blended comedy with vulnerability. By 1969, Peanuts specials had become annual television events, with stories covering holidays, school life, and friendship. The animation style was consistent, limited but expressive, ensuring that the focus remained on dialogue, character beats, and Schulz's humor. This period also introduced theatrical ambitions, leading to the first feature film, A Boy Named Charlie Brown, 1969, which expanded the Peanuts world to cinemas while retaining the melancholy charm that defined the strip. By the end of the decade, Peanuts was no longer just a comic, it was a multimedia empire. Feature films and cinematic growth, 1969 to 1977. The transition to feature-length storytelling began with A Boy Named Charlie Brown in 1969. The film explored Charlie Brown's attempt to prove himself through a national spelling bee, only to fail in the final round, a conclusion consistent with Schulz's philosophy of dignified defeat. The movie used richer animation, cinematic camera work, and a more expansive score, but it stayed faithful to the strip's tone. Snoopy, Come Home, 1972, followed, centering on Snoopy's journey to visit his original owner. Though beloved by fans, its bittersweet themes and lack of commercial success limited box office impact. Two more films followed, Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown, 1977, and Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, 1980, both using larger-scale adventures but always grounding the story in Schulz's vision of resilience through failure. Despite their ambition, Schulz and Mendelsohn agreed that the half-hour television format better suited the rhythm of Peanuts storytelling, and after 4 films, no more theatrical features were pursued for decades. Television series and anthology formats, 1980s. By the early 1980s, Schulz and his team experimented with new television formats to adapt more directly from the comic strips. A Charlie Brown Celebration, 1982, and It's an Adventure, Charlie Brown, 1983, presented multiple short vignettes rather than one continuous story. This allowed Schulz's 4-panel rhythms to translate more faithfully into animation, capturing the humor and pacing of the newspaper strip. Around the same time, The Charlie Brown and Snoopy Show debuted in 1983 as a weekly half-hour series. Each episode featured several adapted skits, but without the reflective pacing of the specials, the series struggled with ratings and lasted only 2 seasons. Despite mixed success, these experiments showed how flexible Peanuts could be on television, whether as a single long story or a collection of small moments. They also confirmed that while audiences loved the characters, the franchise worked best in occasional specials rather than weekly repetition. Thematic growth and later specials, 1970s to 1990s. From the 1970s onward, Schulz continued producing primetime specials that reflected both cultural shifts and his evolving outlook. A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, 1973, and Be My Valentine, Charlie Brown, 1975, became seasonal staples, while It's the Easter Beagle, Charlie Brown, 1974, showed Snoopy in a whimsical new role. Other specials explored school, relationships, and friendship, often highlighting Charlie Brown's defeats with quiet dignity. In the 1980s and 1990s, the specials experimented further. It's Flash Beagle, Charlie Brown, 1984, parodied the dance craze films of the era, while This Is America, Charlie Brown, 1988, used the Peanuts gang to walk through key events in U.S. history. The specials kept a consistent visual style, limited animation, simple line work, and jazz-influenced soundtracks, ensuring continuity across decades. By this period, Peanuts had produced dozens of specials, each reaffirming Schulz's mix of humor, melancholy, and social commentary. The strip's final years and Schulz's legacy, 1990 to 2000. Throughout the 1990s, Schulz continued drawing Peanuts without assistance, maintaining full creative control. The later strips grew slightly warmer and more whimsical, but they retained the reflective wit that had defined his work for 50 years. By this time, Peanuts appeared in over 2,600 newspapers across 75 countries, reaching more than 350 million readers worldwide. Despite health issues, Schulz worked steadily until late 1999, when he announced his retirement. The final daily strip ran on January 3, 2000, and Schulz passed away just weeks later, on February 13th, one day before the last new Sunday strip was published. In total, he had created 17,897 strips, making it the longest continuous story ever told by a single person. Schulz requested that no one continue the strip after his death, and his family honored this wish. Peanuts remained in reruns under the banner Classic Peanuts, securing his legacy as one of the most influential cartoonists in history. Post-Schulz specials and digital transition, 2000 to 2011. After Schulz's passing, longtime producers Lee Mendelson and Bill Melendez created a handful of new specials based directly on his strips. These included A Charlie Brown Valentine, 2002, and He's a Bully, Charlie Brown, 2006. They kept Schulz's stories intact but updated production with digital coloring and cleaner lines, moving away from traditional ink and paint. In 2011, Happiness is a Warm Blanket, Charlie Brown was released, the first special not produced by the original creative team. Based partly on ideas from Schulz's son Craig, it returned to a simpler 1960s-inspired visual style, with sparse backgrounds and limited animation. This marked the end of an era, closing the cycle of traditional broadcast specials. Across 1965 to 2011, a total of 45 Peanuts specials were produced, creating one of the most enduring legacies in television history. Peanuts in the 21st Century, 2014 to 2019. The 2010s saw Peanuts tested in new formats for modern audiences. In 2014, Peanuts by Schulz premiered, produced in France. With more than 100 short episodes, it embraced Schulz's original panel style by animating transitions directly from strip layouts, creating a true motion comic experience. Then, in 2015, the Peanuts movie brought the gang to theaters for the first time in 35 years. Using computer animation by Blue Sky Studios, the film combined modern technology with Schulz's hand-drawn spirit, even mimicking the limited, jolted look of the old specials. It was well received by critics and audiences, earning over $240 million worldwide. Soon after, WildBrain took over the Peanuts brand, producing new digital shorts and expanding licensing partnerships. These adaptations showed that Schulz's characters could be reinterpreted across styles and platforms while remaining faithful to their timeless personalities and themes. The streaming era and enduring influence, 2019 to present. In 2019, Apple TV Plus became the new home for Peanuts content, debuting Snoopy in Space as part of its launch lineup. This series, followed by The Snoopy Show in 2021, used Flash-style animation with bright colors and clean designs, targeting younger audiences while preserving Schulz's humor. The specials also remained cultural fixtures, with A Charlie Brown Christmas and It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown continuing to air each holiday season, now through streaming partnerships. Beyond television, Snoopy and Charlie Brown remain powerful icons. NASA still awards the Silver Snoopy to astronauts, schools and theaters stage You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and merchandise circulates worldwide. Over 70 years after its debut, Peanuts continues to embody Schulz's mix of humor, melancholy, and resilience. Its simple lines and deeply human stories prove that small details, a sigh, a failed baseball game, a dog dreaming of flight, can leave a lasting cultural imprint across generations. I'm going to keep dropping more of these cartoon breakdowns, so if that's your thing, stick around. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for being here, and catch you next time.